Step 6. Organise. Organise and develop timeframes to inform, collaborate, assess, review progress and evaluate portfolios. So schools are accountable for student progress and therefore need to create a robust tracking and monitoring system to record the development and progress of students following the Level 1 learning programmes and the Level 2 learning programmes. Collection of ongoing, reliable and valid teacher-designed assessment tasks that generate evidence of learning and achievement of elements and learning outcomes of priority learning units need to be firmly embedded in the school's processes and practices. To ensure the consistent implementation, management and leadership of the Level 1 learning programmes and Level 2 learning programmes, it is essential that a member of staff develops and maintains systems for maintaining, monitoring student records, portfolios, ensuring information is accurate and up-to-date, i.e. fit for purpose. The assignment of this role and associated responsibilities will be made at school level by senior management, contingent on the priorities of the school. There are a number of resources that may prove beneficial and useful to schools as they go about designing and organising these timeframes and roles and responsibilities. One of these can be seen here, which is an action plan for the Level 1 and the Level 2 learning programmes. It gives an idea of some of the actions that schools may need to complete throughout the 3 years of the junior cycle. This list is not exhaustive and can be added to and edited. It gives schools the opportunity to identify which of these tasks they're going to complete in year 1, and indeed all years, or year 2 only, so on and so forth. There are other documents that are useful then for teachers as they go about gathering and keeping evidence together in one place. The assessment activity mentioned previously can be found here. And essentially these are created by teachers and designed by teachers for assessment moments for students following the Level 1 learning programmes and the Level 2 learning programmes. And it ties together all of the learning that has been evidenced within a piece of evidence. Further guidance can be found on how you might use these documents in our webinar and other places, other resources on the website. The checkpoints that you see referred to in the screencast are broken down into the priority learning units and give teachers the opportunity to identify which learning outcomes have been worked towards and which learning outcomes have evidence to support that learning having happened. There's also a tracker at the start of all of the Level 1 learning programmes checkpoints where you can identify which of the learning outcomes have a piece of evidence tied to them within the portfolio, making it much easier for teachers and teams to have a conversation around final descriptors given in relation to the priority learning units. There are a number of student checkpoints as well for the Level 2 learning programmes, and these are documents similar to the teacher checkpoints, but that students can use themselves to identify how they are moving and progressing through the Level 2 learning programmes. We do have a number of sample e-portfolios which can be found on the website also, and this really gives schools the opportunity to explore how they might use a digital platform to gather evidence and to create a portfolio online. A number of other portfolio resources can be found in this section of the assessment and priority learning units section of our website. Schools from different settings, mainstream and special schools, may differ in their structures, their systems and their processes for monitoring the progress of students following the Level 1 and the Level 2 learning programmes, but their ultimate goal is the same, and that is to gather the evidence and then to have conversations and around that evidence so that the final descriptor can be used and supported on the junior cycle profile of achievement. Step 7. Step 7, create. Design and create inclusive learning experiences which provide access and challenge for all students. So According to Looking at Our Schools 2016 Quality Framework, the standards for the domain learner experiences are that students engage purposefully in meaningful learning activities, grow as learners through respectful interactions and experiences that are challenging and supporting, reflect on their progress as learners and develop a sense of ownership and of responsibility for their learning, and experience opportunities to develop the skills and attitudes necessary for lifelong learning. So these are the reflective lens we use in the design, creation and evaluation of inclusive learning experiences, which provide access and challenge for all students. Students undertaking the Level 2 learning programmes are those with learning disabilities in the low mild to high mod range of ability. Similarly, the criteria in terms of the Level 1 learning programmes are that they were designed for students in the low, moderate to severe and or profound range of ability. All learning experiences for these students should be practical, basic where necessary, predictable, designed and supported, provide support for students and be sequential. Students undertaking either of these programmes will experience some or all of the statements of learning and develop their skills through engagement with the priority learning units, short courses and other curriculum and learning experiences. But for now we need to look at what happens in the classroom and how teachers might be supported as they go about designing inclusive learning experiences. There are a number of websites and resources that we can guide you to here that might support teachers, support you as you go about going through this process. The National Council for Special Education and the website that can be found under the SESS website has lots of different resources. So the ones that we like in particular are signposts. So signposts gives us an insight into all of the different types of learning needs and indeed needs that students may experience and that you may be meeting every day on the ground. The other useful tool on the NCSE website is the Curriculum Access tool. So for those of you that are engaging with the Level 1 learning programmes, you may be familiar with this. It does tie to the primary curriculum, but it is particularly useful because when we click on to a strand here, which you notice is the primary, you will be then guided and have one of these documents downloaded. So this is from SPHE, but what it does is it breaks down this learning objective, this learning outcome, and gives teachers some ideas of what that might actually look like within the classroom. So we're not saying to follow this, but it is a useful resource out there for teachers to be aware of. We do have lots of planning templates, as you've seen in the previous screencast as well, that enable you to document how you are providing inclusive learning moments and experiences for all different levels within your classrooms. There are a number of linking documents also that can be found on our website. Teachers may be familiar with the curricular materials, the NCCA guidelines for students with mild general learning disabilities, and in some cases for primary, moderate and severe and profound. So again, these are useful resources to be aware of. They're split into subject areas. What we particularly like about them are the exemplars at the end, where it gives you some examples of how you could plan for students that have general learning disabilities within your classroom. So these are a really useful resource as well. The guidelines for exceptionally able students, draft guidelines, again from the NCCA, are also linked here, and these can be really useful for us to begin to think about how are we presenting challenge for our students in our classrooms and what might that look like. There are a number of examples of how you might go about doing this, and it explores Gardner's multiple intelligences. It explores Bloom's taxonomy as different ways in which you can do that. So that's a really useful resource as well to be familiar with. We do have Padlets on our level 2 and level 1 JCT website. They're currently empty as we begin collating and pulling resources together for the summer period. We do really encourage teachers to work with these. If you are finding resources that are particularly useful to meet some of the learning outcomes from the level 1 and the level 2 learning programs, please do share them on these Padlets. These Padlets then, with all of the links, are collated and they are shared with anybody on our mailing list. There are further supports in relation to creating inclusive learning experiences on our website, but also as you're engaging with subject CPD, for those of you in post-primary schools engaging with subjects, inclusion and inclusive learning experiences is part of that. Step 8. Assess. Assess student learning and gather evidence for student portfolio. There are a number of documents and templates that teachers may find beneficial to have access to be able to assess and to gather evidence for a student portfolio. This assessment activity sheet has been described previously and shows how teachers can document a number of learning outcomes that students may be working towards within an assessment activity, and also space to identify the success criteria, i.e. what it is students will be demonstrating by engaging with that assessment activity. There is an opportunity to identify individual strengths and needs, and also teacher observations and feedback in terms of next steps. These assessment activity sheets should accompany evidence in the portfolio. There is another evidence report sheet here which you can see identifies one learning outcome in particular, and although it's not necessary to have one of these done for each of the learning outcomes as individual learning outcomes within a portfolio, a mixture of the two of these will make a portfolio much richer, as students and parents and teachers will be able to see exactly what the intended learning was and how students have demonstrated that learning and what their next steps might be. There are a number of resources that can be found to support teachers as they go through the assessment of the level 1 learning programs and the level 2 learning programs on the assessment section of the website. Some of these have been highlighted in the previous screencast. We certainly encourage teachers to explore this section and to utilise any resources that they would find beneficial. There is a digital version of a checklist or a way to identify which PLUs have been covered. Each PLU has a tab down at the bottom of an Excel sheet, and teachers and subjects have the opportunity to acknowledge which learning outcome they took ownership of and which subjects completed assessment activities. You can, of course, edit this Excel sheet to suit the particular needs of your school. Here is just another example of an electronic portfolio that again is used in Microsoft Excel. There are other e-portfolios that can be used in this manner. The whole point of the assessment, though, is that you, with students, create rich portfolios, rich learning, evidence of learning portfolios, as it is that portfolio that students are going to bring home with them. For that reason, the evidence should be varied and should show exactly what students have engaged with and have managed and achieved. Step 9 is to follow procedures from the short course classroom-based assessments. There are two documents that you need to be familiar with in relation to short courses. As you know, the short course specifications and the classroom-based assessment guidelines can be found on the key documents section of both the level 1 section of the website and the level 2 section of the website. So here you'll see the specification, and this tells us all of the learning outcomes that students should be working towards within that short course. We also see guidelines for the classroom-based assessment document. These explain the classroom-based assessment and what task it is that students are expected to engage with. It also provides the features of quality that teachers will use to judge a student's piece of work. It fully describes the descriptors that can be given for each of those CBAs. All of those documents, both the specification and the CBA assessment guidelines, can be found within the key documents section of the L1LPs site and also the Level 2 site. We would suggest teachers are familiar with these short course documents. There are a number of resources that will be useful for teachers as they go about looking at the CBAs, the classroom-based assessments from the short courses, so that they can begin to document and keep a record of what the features of quality are for each of the short courses, the agreed features of quality, and a teacher's understanding of them would need to be discussed and teased out and agreed upon. These will be written into this document here, and feedback and comments could be made against the chosen features of quality.